Welcome to the All Ambient podcast, where we dig into the creative process, hear untold stories, and explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. I'm your host, Mike Graff. I'm excited to be in this together with you. Let's get going. Again, welcome to the All Ambient podcast, everybody. My name is Mike Graff. I make music as Dear Gravity. Man, I'm grateful that you're here. Thanks for listening. It doesn't go unnoticed. You are appreciated. Thanks for showing up. This week, I had the chance to connect with Bobby Turner of Hatsü, and it was a really great time together. Before we dig into that conversation, I want to say a huge thank you to All Ambient. That's all-ambient.com. What an incredible music licensing site for all things ambient and cinematic music. If you are a creator and you are tired of digging through catalogs that have a bunch of music that might not be the best fit for your project, for any project, All Ambient is absolutely the perfect licensing site for you. Every song that's on All Ambient has been expertly curated. There is nothing on the site that doesn't feel great. And even better is that there are curated song bundles that are all designed around an individual theme or feel that can fit your film, video, your project perfectly. It's absolutely a great solution to your music licensing needs. Go check it out at all-ambient.com. That's all-ambient.com. And if you use the promo code podcast25, you will save 25% on your order. That is a huge savings on an already great deal for some incredible music. And fun fact, when you license your music on a site like All Ambient, you can know that you are directly supporting the artists and allowing them to continue to make more and more music in the way that they do, so that you can continue to make great projects in the very way that you do. What a cool thing. Go check it out at all-ambient.com. Today's guest is Bobby Turner of Hatsü. I am so glad we got the chance to connect. Bobby has been making music as Hatsü for a handful of years now. Started right around the pandemic, and there's actually a unique story that he tells about his pre- and post-pandemic music pursuits. But it was really great to hear not only how Bobby creates and how he works it into the rhythm of his life, but also as someone whose job is in a space that is very much antithetical to the world of art. Bobby is a full-time carpenter. To hear him talk about how he balances that in his head and in his heart, it was just a really unique perspective. I was really encouraged by a lot of it. I know that you're going to be too. Let's not wait any further. Let's dig into my conversation with Bobby Turner of Hatsü. Well, today is a good day, and that is because I get the chance to connect with someone who I've been listening to for a while, and we've gotten the chance to release music side by side on Echoes in the Valley releases for quite some time here, but this is the first time that we're actually getting to connect face to face. None other than Bobby Turner of Hatsü has made his way to the All Ambient podcast. Bobby, welcome to the podcast, man.
Awesome to be here, man. Thank you.
Oh, so glad
Lovely
you're
to
here.
see you.
Truly, when I started doing the math, I was like, we've been running alongside each other for quite a while now. I didn't even figure out exactly how many volumes of Echoes in the Valley we've been on together, but I've always enjoyed your stuff, and it's been really a treat to enjoy it from afar. But now to get the chance to do this together, it's going to be really fun. Thanks for setting aside the time to do it.
Cheers, man. I really appreciate it, and the feeling is definitely mutual.
Oh, man.
It's great to be on these compilations and next to so many fantastic producers that I've been listening to for a while. So yeah, really
no
fun.
joke. It's like a big happy family. It's good. It's
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Yeah, it is. It really is.
I love it, man. Well, hey, let's start. If you don't mind, would be really fun. A good place to start is from the beginning. And I would love to hear, Bobby, a little bit more from you about where the music journey began. Where was that spot from the beginning where you began to realize not only that you loved music, but also like, wow, I think this is going to be a significant part of what I do with my life. Tell me the story. I want to hear it.
Yeah, sure. So I guess when I was young, my house at the time, it had a piano in it. So naturally I would just sort of sit and play.
Yeah.
as I grew up, I started to get some piano lessons, and that went on for a couple of years, 2-3 years. Really cool. Like, I was really kind of old school, you know, taught by like this really elderly lady, kind of sat there with like a pencil and like almost like one of those little whips, but not to whip me, just to kind of like point at the sheet music and kind of, you know.
Yep.
So I was like learning how to read music. I was going through my grades, and then she actually stopped teaching children.
Oh, sure.
So I was about 8 or 9, but I stopped learning piano then. However, I feel like it kind of started me up on this kind of musical journey, because after that, I found it quite easy to pick up instruments and kind of just find my way with them. So
yeah,
I think I dabbled a bit with violin as well in primary school, in elementary school. That didn't last very long. It's such a hard instrument to make sound nice.
It is its own animal. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that didn't last very long. However, through secondary school, I picked up bass, picked up guitar. I did the whole band thing whilst I was in secondary school.
Yeah.
I went to secondary school through the early 2000s. So I was really heavily into like nu metal and that whole kind of scene. So yeah, I was in like a school band, and we were doing like the whole sort of metal band thing.
I love it. What were you playing? Guitar? Were you?
I was playing bass. I was doing bass and vocals actually. So
amazing. Love it.
Yeah, I can't sing for love nor money, but I was doing a lot of shouting at the time, shouting and screaming. Yeah. So yeah, a bit of bass, and then kind of just picked up guitar and just played with it.
Sure.
And then, you know, same with drums, same with like, I kind of just dabbled with these instruments. I never really settled and worked out how to kind of play them properly, but I could play them enough to sort of like slightly impress people around me. You know, like, I don't know if I can play this sort of thing.
Right.
And then when I left school, I went to college for 4 years, and I did music technology and music production. So I guess like the first 2 years, I was still very much in like this kind of rock mindset, and spent the first couple of years kind of like doing the whole micing up drum kits and recording live sound and all that sort of thing. And as I got to like my second 2 years, when I was heading into late teens, starting to go out with my friends, and I kind of started to look into like the electronic music kind of world a bit more as I was kind of like going out partying.
Hey.
But to be honest with you, I never applied myself at college. I spent 4 years at college. I never really applied myself. I couldn't have told you what a compressor was. I couldn't have told you like what the EQ does. I basically just sat there, and I'd get like guitar tabs and just write them out, and then just use like a stock synthesizer and just listen to it and be like, oh, that's cool. But then kind of just, you know, get on with my life. However, like music was obviously like this thing that kind of stuck with me. I left college and became a carpenter straight away, basically. So I went like kind of like 180 degree turn and just found a career that wasn't anything to do with music. It wasn't until I was actually in my late 20s that I thought, I really wish that I'd, you know, either stuck with an instrument or just stuck with production, or actually worked out how to make these sounds sound like things I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
That I'm enjoying. So when I was about 27, I purchased all the bits and bobs again. You know, I got like some studio gear, I got some monitors, got Logic at the time.
Yeah.
And I just started learning, and I just said to myself, because I went through my whole life dabbling, getting to a point where like I was okay, but I never wanted to go through the discomfort of being not so good at something, but and then making that transition into actually being sort of half good at something, because it takes time and effort, right?
Sure does.
It's something that like, it's a weird thing, isn't it? Doing something and not being that good at it, but still doing it every single day. Like it's something that takes a lot of sort of determination and a lot of patience. And I actually think it was the becoming a carpenter that actually taught me that kind of mindset, because there was times when I was learning my trade where I'd watch the guy above me, and I'd think to myself, like, God, how am I ever going to know like how to do this? Like, how am I going to go on my own and, you know, do this work and just know what to do? But after like sort of 2-3 years, it just happens. You know, you just do it so much that it does just happen. Right. So that, I guess, like learning the carpentry was the first time I'd ever kind of like done something for long enough, I actually became like okay at it. And it kind of flicked this switch in me where I was like, okay, time and patience and effort and practice does actually lead to something decent. So I decided that I was going to do that. So I'm late 20s now. Not at the moment. I mean, in the story, I'm sort of late 20s. I'm picking up.
You could have fooled me,
production.
man. I'll tell you that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm picking up music production again. I've got a brand new baby, a girl. You know, I'm a father, so I've got like my baby girl is about 1-2 years old at this time.
Yep.
You know, I'm working on site and coming home. I'm doing the dad stuff, and then I'm doing the music from 8 until late, and then even sometimes waking up early to do it before work.
Yeah.
During the time of like late teens to late 20s, I'd gone off a lot of rock music and started turning my attention to quite interesting electronic music. Electronic music I didn't really know existed. Things like Bonobo and Flume.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Mount Kimby. Guys that were using like interesting samples, Foley sounds, and still having like quite a high element of emotion within their music. Like I thought that was amazing, because I guess my only entry to electronic music before that was more of like a bass heavy kind of thing. It was when I was in my late teens, it was like the rise of dubstep and drum and bass and house music and all this sort of thing. And I had my little time with that, but I turned away from it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So to find these like more interesting electronic sounding artists was like a real kind of like, wow, like they're making sounds with like rocks and leaves and like all of this sort of thing. And I thought that was really great. And not just as
a joke, like it fits. It's got a vibe. Yeah, like
they're adding it to their drums and using cutlery drawer for like hi-hats and things like that. So like that, I thought that was amazing. And so I started to kind of make that kind of music. I guess that's what I wanted to do at first. And I quickly shifted from Logic to Ableton. Yep. Just purely because I saw some of the producers I liked at the time using it. I just wanted to get to know it. Yep. So I did. And I just started writing this quite glitchy electronic type of music. At one point I was getting some production lessons from like this guy online. He's really cool. And I was making this quite like heavily edited audio glitchy music. And when the pandemic hit, I spent about anywhere between 7 to 10 hours a day working on music, which was like a huge contrast from before. Right. Like just doing a couple of hours in the evening to spending like all day working on music. Yep. And I just, after a while of making this sort of glitchy music, it was quite tough because I was never finishing anything, and it was kind of stressing me out a bit actually making that music. So I started making ambient music to try and chill myself out.
Sure. Yeah. Self-appointed therapy.
Then, exactly. So then that just kind of stuck really in the end, and I really enjoyed it. I really struggled, I think, when making this kind of other music with like drums and this electronic music. I really struggled with things like sound selection, and I'm very hypercritical of my own work, and it kind of held me back a bit. Whereas I felt with ambient music, it was very like there didn't seem to be any rules at all. Right. So it was just it was a bit of a breath of fresh air to kind of manage to like get across these emotions or feelings that you want to have in a song without having to clean them up so much and make it all pristine and perfect and all of this stuff for a release that people would listen to it. And do you know what I mean? They would just feel the emotion of it, and then that would be enough. Yeah, like
absolutely. What the majority of listeners will probably know you as is, your moniker Hatsü. But the music that you were making prior, kind of in more of that, like the EDM, the electronic, that was under a different moniker. And then kind of, as you said, the pandemic hit, like that was sort of the genesis right there of what transitioned into really what I think a lot of us might pinpoint as like, oh, that's the stuff that I know. So that was the moment then, kind of coming right through the pandemic. And what was the name of the moniker that you were doing before that?
The name of the moniker I was using before that was Visco City.
Love it.
It was, like I say, a heavily edited kind of EDM-ish, more IDM, I guess they would call it.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
I did an EP and a rework, and that was about it. I just found it really hard to keep on like releasing this music that like the bar was so high within that genre that I felt like I couldn't keep up with it. And I probably could have done, but at the time I was very, like I said, very self-critical. So I found it hard to keep up with it because of that, I guess.
Yeah.
So many perfect mixes and
Oh, man.
great sounds, and all made by like kids of like, 16, 17. And I'm like,
with like stock plugins and you're just like,
exactly.
what? So
like I fished around for a little bit before settling in ambient, because I was making the ambient music and I was trying to find a community, because I'm the only one that I know in real life that makes music.
Sure.
Let alone the glitchy electronic music, let alone ambient music. So I was trying to find communities of like musicians, and skipping across discords and finding myself in places where like I said, just like a load of kids making like some of the best music I've ever heard. As I'm sat there as like pushing on 30 thinking, geez. And that's the great thing about like the ambient community, is like we're just a bunch of dads. And I just feel like I just feel so at home here.
Oh, that's so, man. Maybe there is something to that self-appointed therapy where we all need this level of just like chill in our lives or something. That's really
I definitely think so.
Oh man, that's so good. I love that. Well, and gosh, there's so much to say. I feel like we could pick apart a handful of those things. But man, to be honest, like I think it's worth it to identify what you were saying, Bobby. Like you were, working in a genre that you loved and all that, but to know how much time you had to throw at it and to look at what was being accomplished around you. Like, I don't think you were being fearful in your sizing up of what was happening and seeing like, I'm not going to measure up. I think it was more just like a realistic, like, if I only have this much time to put into this, maybe I need to pivot to something that comes more natural, or something that I identify with, something that I can get further results with this amount. And then of course, the pandemic hits and you're able to give a very different amount of time to the project, which is great. But that self-assessment is one that it's humbling, but it's also really eye-opening. And I love that you were daring enough to go through that process. It's a big deal, man.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying as well that at that specific time when I picked up music again, I put a lot of weight on myself to try and make this into some kind of career.
Sure. Yep.
So I think when I was trying to create music at that time, I didn't really know where I fit in. And, so like the music would go anywhere from 60 BPM to 180 BPM and everywhere in between. Right. So I never really found somewhere to kind of build a basis.
Yep.
Honestly, that would like stress me out. And I think that a lot of people who make music and who aren't lucky enough, or who aren't in a position where they are doing it for a living, they kind of feel this emotion of like tense and like they're really trying to get it done, and that doesn't help the creative process. And I think I was always really good at making background sounds for these projects. Just like setting a tone or finding like an emotion with like the background sound. So I lent into that, and it helps me create a foundation for a project where, I'm not doing this full time. However, it definitely scratches the itch. I don't feel this need to like not work as a carpenter. Like I enjoy working as a carpenter, and I enjoy doing music, because they're both rolling. They both got momentum going with them. Whereas before it was like I was just a carpenter, but I had this like massive urge to have a musical project, but I could never find what it was. So it was almost like I was adding so much resistance and tension into my music making experience that it wasn't fun a lot of the time. It was just like a kind of like a hair pulling moment, like, oh, come on, like this needs to be done. Like I need to somehow create a life from this. Whereas now I'm like, I'm quite happy doing both the things. And, sometimes like this year, I haven't done much music at all this year. And I've been working really hard, and I've been doing other things like getting in the gym, and I've only managed to kind of write a couple of things this year. But whereas before, like during the pandemic and the beginning stages of the Hatsü project, I always had like releases lined up in front of me. So this year, this was the first year from January to now that I haven't had, I've had like one or two lined up. But it's been a learning curve of, not forcing something and not feeling like I need to be constantly producing something, because the project is there. It's ready to go whenever I want to come back to it. Right. Whereas the contrast before was me feeling like, I'd be waking up early in the morning to do it, and I'd be staying up till God knows when, like 4 a.m, then going to work. And I think I had a couple of harsh lessons, I burnt myself out pretty bad a couple of times, and it's just kind of made me realize that sometimes the creativity is there, sometimes it's not. If I'm not working so hard on site, then I'm likely to have more time to do music, and vice versa.
Yep.
So I'm at a place where I'm like, I'm quite happy with it.
I got this dumb vision in my head of you staying up till 4 working on a production. And again, I may be slightly ignorant here, but you know, whatever lane of carpentry you might find yourself in, if you're going on just a couple hours of sleep, like if you're working with some sort of big tool or something that you know, something that could do some serious damage if you happen to doze off because you're running on just a couple hours of sleep. I'm grateful that you have managed to avoid accident and injury in the line of fire as you were sort of figuring out, how do I do this? How do I balance this without burning myself into the ground? And that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to say I'm glad you're alive, Bobby. Glad you're alive.
I am too.
When the music that you were making as Hatsü, and forgive me for not knowing off the top of my head, but I believe you started releasing stuff with Valley View pretty early on, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Love it. How did that relationship begin?
So I was, making this music to chill out. And so I decided to do a bit of research, and Valley View were at the top of the list, really.
100%.
Guys that just popped up top of the list, and I just went through their website, had to listen to a couple of you guys, obviously yourself, Marshall, Human is Alive, all those type of guys. And I was like, that just sounds very similar to what I make at the moment. Yeah, so I just reached out, and luckily enough, Matt was happy to release a 4-track EP for me. And
love it.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I just managed to keep going with them, really. And yeah, everyone I've kind of spoken to and met, and everyone's just so nice in this community.
Yeah.
Everyone's just really, really chill, really happy to help you. Obviously, you find the people that you really gel with the most. And like, I've got so many great friendships from this, like so many people that I've met, and in real life now that I've met up with a couple of them. And yeah, it's just, I feel really kind of blessed to be around so many talented people within this community, because it's such a contrast to my real life as well.
Absolutely.
Like I don't really talk about my musical life with the people in my real life, because I'm not sure. I kind of have this thing in my mind where I'm like, I don't think they'll get it, so I just don't talk to them about it. But then I've got this whole other life of like musicians and people that I just talk to. I'm like, these just two different people,
Yeah. Oh man, living the double life, not in any sort of negative way. No, I do hear you. Well, and I do love, like you said, the ambient community is a big deal. And I think, I don't want this to sound like a trash talk of every other genre. I love community, period. And it seems as though the ambient community, the artists that have come together, it feels so much more like family than it does that we're all like fighting for a piece of the same pie. You know what I mean? Like, it is an abundance mentality thing. It's not a scarcity mentality thing. I talk about that a lot, but I love that we're literally all in this together. That's a really cool thing. Yeah.
Like I said, we're just a bunch of dads, aren't we? We know about family, and I think some of these other communities, like, that there's still maybe some growing to do.
Sure.
Like in personal lives and things like that. But whereas, like, I think here we kind of know what we want, and we've settled here, and we're just happy to embrace anyone else who's here, really, which is great.
Yeah, well, and maybe instead of us being the only ones who get to enjoy that, maybe it's a decent model for the next wave of artists that will be folded into that family. And it's not a short-term thing by any means. So yeah. Love that. At time of recording this interview, you just got the chance to hang out with a couple of people in the UK, because you're based in the UK, a couple of people who are not typically in the UK, but are dear friends of mine, dear friends of the podcast. Marshall Usinger and Ben Tatlow were both in the UK just within this last week or two, and you got to hang out with them. I'm so jealous.
I mean, it was great, man. We met up in London. We went to a pub. We had some Thai food.
Awesome.
Went to another pub. I think the night before, they saw Good Weather for an Airstrike.
Yeah, that's right.
Live show,
Tom was in town.
Which must have been really cool.
Yep.
And it was great. It was amazing. Just quite similar to what we're doing right now. Just talking about music and all that sort of thing. And then luckily enough, a few days later, I saw Marshall again at the Kiasmos show in London.
Kiasmos. Oh.
Yeah, which was really, really great as well. So yeah, feel very blessed to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And that my jealousy continues into that part of the conversation as well. What a dream to see Kiasmos in London. And just what a great experience, man. I am so thrilled that you got to connect. They're thrilled to connect with you. I love the family. That's just so great. It's awesome.
Yeah, really, really cool guys, man. I chatted to Marshall quite a few times online and on Instagram.
Yeah.
You know, about all sorts of things as well. Just mindsets towards making music and actually music. I released an EP with Slow Echo at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've gone back and forward on emails with Ben as well. And I always thought both of them had just seemed like really nice guys. So in real life, they're just as nice.
Yeah.
Really cool guys.
It is not a facade by any means.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No, that's so great. Well, Bobby, I am curious a little bit, because if I am hearing you correctly, you still would consider yourself in the carpentry industry. You are still actively a carpenter? Yeah?
Yeah, I am.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I do first fix carpentry. So I build conversions, like loft conversions. I guess you would call them attics. Yeah, so I do like timber frame loft conversions for people here in the UK. And yeah, like when I'm doing it, I feel a million miles away from an artist, I've got to say. Like, so it doesn't, like, it's like I say, like with these two lives, it is, I'm not saying it lightly, really. I mean, I haven't done a lot of music this year at all. So when I was asked to participate on this podcast, I had a serious amount of imposter syndrome come over to me, because I'm like,
not even
I'm
for
a builder,
a second,
man. Like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm a builder.
Not even for a second. Nope. That's I get the feeling for sure. Don't mean to cut you off. Like, that is a very real. We're actually going to be talking about imposter syndrome on one of the roundtables coming up in just a little bit here. But what I was going to ask you, and it sounds like it ebbs and flows, you know, just kind of depending on the season of life, the amount of work coming in. But what does that balance look like for you? Because I think there is it's unique to each person, but also like just depending on like the industry needs, like what is asked of you as you're putting together these loft build outs and everything that you're putting your hands to in carpentry. What does that balance look like as far as you still being able to create? And if it's if you just had said like bigger chunks of time less often, or if you try to weave it in. I know you literally just said that you haven't done much this year, but also, I mean, the year's not even half over, so who knows what's going to happen. But yeah, walk me through that a little bit, what that looks like for you, if you're happy with the balance, just kind of where you're at with all that.
Yeah, so, well, the job that I do is very physically demanding. I'm on my feet all day and, you know, lifting big lengths of timber, steel beams around. And for the most part, I really enjoy that aspect, because during lockdown, I spent, as I mentioned, like 7 to 10 hours a day, sat down, crouched over a laptop. So I ended up actually really getting bad necks and bad heads and all this sort of thing that I didn't realize was a thing. Like, like, I've been such an active sort of work life for most of my life. I didn't realize that sitting down was really painful. So as I went back to the carpentry after kind of like having the Hatsü project solidify itself, I was quite grateful in a way to be back on my feet again.
Love it.
However, because it's so physically demanding, and for some reason, I decide to go to the gym sometimes after work and just batter myself some more.
Beat it. Yeah. If we're going to go, let's go all out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It can be hard to come home sometimes and then carry on doing something which is still demanding. Making music fatigues me still, but in a different way, which is why I've had to learn to dip in and out of it when I feel like I can, because I guess the lesson I learned was being on site and working and going to the gym and parenting thing and the partner thing, and then also thinking that I'm chilling out making music, but I'm not, because I've got all of these like things in my head, like, oh, I need to be making a release, or it needs to be this standard, it needs to be that, and that's also working my nervous system just as the building and the working out is. So eventually I end up burning out, and it's very uncomfortable. And so I am learning now to pick and choose my times of when to create. When I'm off work, I had 2 weeks off during Christmas, which was the last time I sort of had a period of time off work, and within sort of 2 or 3 days I was feeling super inspired, and I sat down and I made quite a lot of music.
Awesome.
I've actually got knee surgery coming up at the end of June.
Oh, for real? Wow.
Yeah.
What do you have done?
I can't remember what the name of the surgery is, but I basically got a meniscus tear.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so something has to happen with that.
That's going to put you out of carpentry work for quite a few weeks, yes?
Exactly. Yeah. So that, in my head, although the surgery is going to be a bit tough, the music, hopefully the music making is going to go up again. So I'll have some releases for the next part of the year. So I'm actually quite looking forward to that. Even having some time off. So
I'm with you. Well, and for what it's worth, the fact that, that you're, taking advantage of it, you're like, well, shoot, I'm immobilized in the sense of like crawling around in lofts and stuff, but like not immobilized to the level where you can't create music. But also, like, for me, I am not projecting onto you, but I know that would be a very welcome, like, mental and emotional therapy, if you will, like from this knee surgery. Like, man, let me just get into this creative space, and just I'm not just in need of physical therapy with my knee right now. I need to like kind of reset everything. And what a cool timing. I'm sorry that you need the surgery, but it really does sound like there could be a great opportunity, like you said, out of it to take advantage of the time and being able to get therapy in multiple ways. So that's really cool.
Exactly. And I definitely will be doing that. I definitely will be doing, hopefully be really on it with the music again, because it's taken me some time to realize that I can't do everything. And when I haven't been feeling inspired this year, there's been times where I felt quite like, oh, maybe I'm not that artist anymore. Then maybe it's just finished now. And I'm just going to just do the building forever now. But, I've had little spurts like last week and the week before. I had spurts of, I've made like 2 or 3 ideas that aren't finished, but they're solid ideas. And a friend of mine was like, oh, this is, you have these times where you don't do anything for a while and then suddenly you just do loads. And then you don't do anything, then you just do loads. So it's that time where you're not making anything, which can be quite uncomfortable, I guess. But I guess, like, sounds quite cliche, but you just got to kind of trust that it will come around again and just be ready for it when it does, really.
Yeah. Well, I, for one, am, and this is not pandering. It's not just because you and I are having a conversation right now. I am glad that you have not hung up your hat and said, I am done with this. I love your stuff. I've had it on for most of the day. It's just kind of taken me through and it's just been so, I've loved your approach. If it's right at home in the ambient world, but also you can bring this really sweet uniqueness to it that is very much in the best way, very much a signature thing. And I love that approach. And so whatever the timeline looks like, man, keep on doing what you're doing. Please, please, please.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Cheers.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, there is a release coming out at time of recording. It's not out yet, but I believe by the time this episode does come out, it will be out in the world. You have a collab single on Slow Echo coming out called In Between, correct?
Yes.
Tell me about it. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I made this collab with a good music friend of mine, Consul, my Slovenian pal.
Love it.
Yeah.
You've done stuff together that I'm just such a fan of, so it's cool that's continuing forward. I love that. Yeah,
thanks. We made an EP last year, and it's one of my favorite things I've made with someone else, bar another couple of releases. But yeah, that's something that like we took a lot of time over, and we really tried to polish up as much as we could. And we were both really happy with it. Me and Vid, Consul, we have very similar tastes in pretty much all the genres that we like. Electronic music, rock music, and ambient music. Like, we have pretty much the same taste in it all. So it's really nice to work with someone like that. In January, there was a band that was playing in London, and it was a band that he introduced me to, actually, and I just loved them, and he loves them as well. And when I saw that they were playing in London, I just bought a ticket, just one ticket, and was just like, yo, man, look, I got a ticket for this. Like, how cool is that? And he was like, oh, I'm going to get a ticket as well. So he bought a ticket as well. And he was like, I'm just going to come and... he came over and stayed in just about 20 minutes down the road from me for like 3 or 4 days.
That's awesome.
So we spent a couple of days together. We booked out... There's these things dotted around London called Pirate Studios. And they're basically like basic rooms with, monitors and basic setups, basically.
Love it.
And we spent a couple of days in one of those and... just messing around and experimenting. And that's how we came up with In Between. And that's where we wrote In Between in January this year.
Perfect.
Yeah, which makes it a bit special, because I don't think either of us have written music with people in real life.
Yeah.
It's always been like collabs online, sending stems to each other and that sort of thing. So
which has its own
really
place,
nice.
And it's lovely in its own sense. But I'm with you though, like to do it in person, to be interacting in real time, and it is its own thing in a beautiful way. Yeah,
definitely. It's something that I haven't really experienced since being sort of 15, 16 years old in a band. So it was really, really nice to do that and, you know, just listen to music together and talk about music. And obviously we went to see the band in London, which was really nice because funny story actually is we went to get a train to get into North London and there was train strikes. So we couldn't get anywhere.
Man,
we couldn't get anywhere. And I was like thinking to myself, God, this guy's come from Slovenia. Like we need to get to this gig. So I ended up driving. I live in South London. So I ended up driving to the venue. Yeah. We drove and my sat nav took me straight through the centre of London. So we're going past like Big Ben, we're going past the Houses of Parliament, like, and he sat there like getting this private tour of London. That's mouth open, just looking out like, oh my God, look at this.
Oh man.
Yeah, we're both quite big football fans as well. So that night there was a football game on. Yeah. So when we got to the venue, which was underneath a pub. Yeah. We went in the pub where there was like a big screen TV. Yep. There was loads of football fans in there and, you know, that he got to experience, I guess, like an English football kind of rowdiness.
Absolutely.
That I love personally and like he loved as well. You know, he's standing there taking videos and then we went downstairs and watched the bands and then we drove home. Yeah, it was a really good night. It was really good. Yeah. So
who's your team?
He loved it.
In football?
I'm an Arsenal fan. I'm a big Arsenal fan, yeah.
There you go. That's amazing. So much fun. I'm glad you guys got that together. What was the band? Who did you go see?
So the band, they're called Arm's Length.
Yeah.
They're an emo band.
Amazing.
Pop punk type band. Yep. And like I said, I stopped kind of listening to any kind of guitar music by the time I hit 20. Yeah. And anything that like my friends would suggest to me, I was just kind of like, no, I'm done with this for now. Like I'm kind of in this electronic, crazy Foley music at the moment. But like, you know, like the last couple of years, I've kind of been stepping back into it and listening to like things I used to listen to and then realizing I've got about 10 years of music to catch up on within that genre. So like I'm finding like these newer bands and these younger guys that are doing it now and like I'm really enjoying it, like feeling those kind of emotions again, you know, and
absolutely.
Like those sort of that sort of angst I haven't felt for a while.
That's a good word for it. Yeah. Oh man,
which I really enjoy. So yeah, it was great. It's great. I'm grateful that he's put me kind of onto it again, really, because it was down to Vid really that I kind of stepped back into that.
Absolutely.
Whole world again, really. So yeah, grateful.
Man. Well, one of the things that has jumped out at me really quickly throughout your catalog is it's funny you say that, you know, about 10 years ago, you were like, I'm done with guitars and like just I need space from that. But the way that you capture guitar within the Hatsü sound, like the way that it kind of finds its own spot in that mix is so unique. And it's so like, I really do, when I was, you know, kind of talking about like sort of that signature way, I think the guitar is probably one of the things that I would lump into that sort of signature thing, just the way that you approach it. And it's so tasteful, it's so melodic, and it's got a really unique tone. The way that you capture it is really just tonally unique and beautiful. So I'm glad that guitar is still around in your world and that you're putting it to good use. And that's really cool.
Thanks for that. I lean on it sometimes. I can't actually play guitar. I can't play any instruments really. I can only like speak like the language like quite simplistically, but I think listening to some of these bands and looking at the tunings they use, they're kind of almost like cheat codes. Yeah. You know, like with the open tunings and like the capos and all this sort of thing. So it is all very sort of simple stuff, but I guess like with it, I just try and find the feeling that I'm looking for, and if I can find it, which a lot of the time I don't, but when I can find that feeling, then I just kind of roll with it, and then it just seems to work.
I love that
in that sense. But something that I really want to do in the near future is nail down an instrument, either whether it be sort of guitar or piano. I want to spend a good 10 years or so just getting super good at it. Just sometimes I want to be able to speak that language a bit better, and I can't. So what I was talking about before when I was talking about just dabbling and never really getting to any final stage of it, this is something that I want to go back and do now, because I think I'll probably do it with piano, but I really enjoy the thought of reciting music, because sometimes creating music, if it's not working, it can be like, you know, it can be quite tough. Yeah. Whereas I feel like, you know, the practice of reciting and learning music I feel like that'd be quite a nice little contrast. If I'm not feeling the creation side, then it'd be quite nice to just go and play someone else's creation.
Yeah, the educational side of it, furthering the way that you think about it, that you approach it, will undoubtedly inform you if and when you then decide to make more stuff. I think it's a great call, and what a cool thing to set up for yourself, and it's going to pay off. I love that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, we're hitting that time in the interview. You might know what's about to come, but we have a few questions that are officially titled the All Ambient Lightning Round. Would you find yourself ready for the All Ambient Lightning Round, Bobby?
I think so.
I believe in you. It's going to be great. And again, the pressure isn't on that you need to come up with some fancy answer. It can be as long or as short as you want. But really, it's just a off the top of your head, what's your initial thought on this, on this, on this? So,
okay.
With that being said, what is something that you, Bobby, are geeking out about right now? Maybe it's in the music world. Maybe it's a release. Maybe it's some gear or something. Maybe it's outside of the music. Maybe it's something in family or carpentry or anything, arsenal, anything. What what are we geeking out about?
Okay, so I guess because I haven't really been music Bobby much this year, the whole gear and releases thing, it doesn't really come into it. However, I moved house at the back end of last year and I finally got like a garden space, and I've never had my own music area. I've always just been working either just on my lap or been like squeezed into the corner of a bedroom.
Totally. Yep.
So my project for the summer is I'm building a studio in the garden from scratch.
Awesome.
Yeah. So at the moment, I've got this like old garage in our garden, which I need to demolish. And so my first job was to build a garden shed so I could put everything in the garage into the garden shed.
Yep.
So now
One thing at a time.
at this. Yeah, exactly. So now I'm going to demolish the garage and start building this studio from scratch. And
wow,
I'm really looking forward to this, having a space where, much like, I can see you on camera right now and you've got like lights and soundproof things and all this sort of thing. And like, I'm just really looking forward to having somewhere where I can start setting out the little bits of gear that I do have and then start plowing money into buying gear and going down that road. And, like I'd quite like to get like an upright piano in there and
absolutely. Yeah.
And just like have like a nice space, a nice area where I can go where it's like music world. Whereas before, like I said, I've only ever had these kind of like makeshift spaces. So I'm doing a lot of planning for that at the moment, saving up my money for the materials and all this thing. So I'm feeling really excited about that.
Amazing. Well, man, I cannot wait to see little updates along the way. And I'm sure it'll take a minute for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially with the knee surgery, but I will be.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I will be making little videos and time lapses of demolitions and like the whole thing going up. And
absolutely.
It all coming together. So I'm really excited about that.
That'll be great, man. Excited for you. All right. Next question, Bobby. What is one weird thing about you that most people probably do not know?
I guess like in real life, it would probably be my music project.
Yeah.
Like I say, I don't really talk
Bobby
about
the
it
carpenter makes music? Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because of like, I guess what type of music it is. If anyone finds out that I made music, I tend to like over give them this like crazy spiel of like, oh, but it's this and it's this. And it's not actually a song. It's like just textures and sounds and all this kind of stuff. Like, I end up giving it a bit of a rundown, which is probably really unnecessary, but I end up doing it anyway. Another thing would be just that no one really knows about this, but I've actually got a tattoo on the inside of my lip.
Oh, for real?
That says "dude." My best friend's got "sweet" on his, which
oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Did you get them at the same time?
Yeah, we got them at the same time.
Love it.
We were at like a tattoo convention, and it's been a bit of a dream of ours since we watched Dude, Where's My Car?
Of course.
So
that's so funny.
It does,
okay, so if you're at a tattoo, is that your only? What other ink do you have? Because I would assume that if you have a tattoo on the inside of your mouth, that cannot be the one and only piece of ink that is on you.
No, I've got like half a sleeve and then another half finished full sleeve. I've got a stick man on my ankle and
amazing
random little bits and bobs where my friend had a tattoo when we were like in our early a tattoo gun in our early 20s. So we sometimes that would come out during parties. Dangerous thing. But yeah, the lip tattoo is something that I actually forget about myself. So
yeah. How long does that, does it go pretty fast? I assume when it's just script like that it wasn't an hour in the chair or anything. I'm sure it's just a few minutes, but like pain-wise, was it pretty wild or was it okay?
No, it was okay. It was okay, actually. I had to go back and get it redone because it was, like you say, it was quite a quick thing and he didn't go deep enough. And within like a week or two, it was starting to fade. So I actually went back to the shop and he did it again. He went a bit deeper this time and you could definitely feel it a bit more.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Super cool. Dude, sweet.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, I got one more for you. I love your story, love the journey, love just how all the different pieces of life play together with everything. So for the person out there who is hearing every part of your story and loving your stuff and all that, and they're like, man, I really want to follow in Bobby's footsteps. Like, I'm inspired by this. I want to take steps. What advice would you give that person? Just knowing what you know and going through what you've gone through, what advice would you give that person?
Be inspired by other musicians, but don't compare yourself too much. I fell into a trap of the comparison trap quite a lot during my music sort of creation journey. And it's not a nice place to be when you're learning. Like, it's like I say, like being inspired is great, but we all experience life, I guess, in a different way. And if people are making art, some kind of art, then that's a sort of representation of what their experience of life is. And because we're all so individual in that, you can't really copy that. And when you are being sort of true to yourself, that's when the characteristics start coming through.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Like the times when I've tried to sound like someone else because I've been really inspired by that sound, you can almost never really get there because you're not that person. So I think that if you stay true to yourself and don't rely so heavily on sounding like someone else, your own sound will come and those characteristics that are unique to you will sort of fall into place.
Yeah.
I think that's what I've tried to learn anyway.
Yeah, that's an incredible encouragement. That's a great place to end for sure. And thank you not only for sharing that, but also for living that out. And I think your work really is kind of like a living example, living, testament to that. And I love that. I'm so glad that in the midst of all that journey, you've made some really cool things. And I'm so glad that they're out there in the world. And don't stop, man, whatever that rhythm looks like, whether it's surgery recovery or whether it's, whatever windows of time. Hopefully you don't have to get a surgery in order for like these windows of time to show up. We'll just keep this as a one and done. But whatever that rhythm looks like and how each season kind of unveils a new thing, you are an incredible artist, Bobby. Thank you so much for bringing it to the world and for modeling that well. And yeah, it's just been an absolute blast to connect and keep on doing what you're doing, man. Absolutely.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you again for listening to the All Ambient podcast. Music from this week's episode is from the catalog of Hatsü, and you can find all of this music along with a bunch of other incredible songs, bundles, and other resources from an amazing group of composers and producers at all-ambient.com. And be sure to use the promo code podcast25. That's podcast25. And you'll get 25% off of any product at all-ambient.com. It's a great opportunity to save even more on an incredible resource for your next film, video, or project. Don't wait for another second. Head over to allambient.com and use promo code podcast25. Again, that's podcast25 to get 25% off of your next purchase. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast so you can catch every conversation we have with all these incredible people who share the same passion. I'm looking forward to the next time. I hope that you are too. Can't wait to see you then. And until then, have an incredible day. Here's hoping that this music and the heart behind it makes your day and life that much better. See you next time.